Interesting.
Hello guys and girls, how are you doing? You alright? Today we'll be investigating a very unusual story. A tale of unexpected desires, urban legends, organised crime and tragedy, plus much more. As with my last video, this one's set in the north of England, so I'll do subtitles again for any clips that I use and translate any slang, as people seem to be thankful for that last time. Our story begins in the city of Liverpool, a city famous for the Beatles, being represented in Parliament by Francis Bacon in 1588 and Purple Aki. I know the Francis Bacon thing is a bit of a stretch, but there wasn't much else apart from the Beatles really. And Francis Bacon is an impressive guy. He wasn't born in Liverpool, he was born on the other side of the country in London. Anyway, our tale starts in the 1980s on the dark and dangerous streets of Liverpool. Urban legends would be whispered by children in playgrounds, quietly muttered by mothers at shops. Stories of a gigantic black man who would appear silently from the shadows and do unusual things to unsuspecting young boys, then disappear like a ghost. This urban legend would last for years and be used playfully by parents to get their kids off the street home for bed. "Get home now or Purple Aki will get you," would be the chorus heard as the sun is setting over the River Mersey. As the years went by, more and more stories would emerge about this gigantic apparition haunting the streets of Liverpool, but no one really believed them. More of a perverted Santa Claus type figure than a real threat to be concerned about. So what would this ominous figure do to these young boys? Well, he would squeeze their muscles. He would also ask them to measure their muscles, and he would get them to squat him. He would lie on their back and they would squat up and down with him on their back. You see, this urban legend had a very definite type. He really likes athletic, muscular teenage boys. And after the young boys had finished squatting him, it would be Purple Aki who would be all hot and bothered. This myth would circulate around Liverpool for a long time until one day the truth about this urban legend would be thrust into reality following the tragic death of a young man.
When I was at school here, we'd all joke about him. We'd wonder if he was real. We'd make threats, saying he was going to come and get you. And we'd laugh. We'd be a little bit scared.
Gary Kelly was a 6-foot-tall, 16-year-old boy who loved to play football and was much loved by his family and pregnant girlfriend. Unfortunately for Gary, Purple Aki had also taken a liking to him and would wait outside his home, then spring out of nowhere asking Gary to squat him, or if he could feel or measure his muscles. This went on for some time until Gary went to the police and Purple Aki was arrested.
Gary was absolutely terrified of him. Yeah, really scared. Really scared. Yeah. But you would be, wouldn't you? He'd be standing in the entry at the side of his house. So you wouldn't know that he was there. And as Gary would leave my house and walk over, he'd just step out the entry. And then Gary would go down the entry with him. And that's where he used to make Gary do the squats and stuff. Gary said that he would get excited by that. So that's why Gary went to the police in the end and got a harassment order.
He was given a harassment order which stated that he couldn't go into the area that Gary lived. But one day Gary was leaving a swimming pool when he spotted Purple Aki. Fearing retaliation for informing to the police, he ran with Aki following him. Gary would reach a train station, but then Aki turned up at this train station, so he crossed the train lines to escape and was electrocuted. Gary sadly died on the 15th of June 1986 and Purple Aki was arrested. He was charged and convicted of involuntary manslaughter but successfully appealed this, as it was not illegal for him to just stand at a train station. It's important to note that stalking laws were not a thing in the UK until 2012. There is more to this court case that we'll cover later, but for now, this event turned the myth into a real man. Not a lot is known about Aki's early life, but we do know some stuff. This is his real name. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this, I'll just call him Aki for the remainder of the video. Aki was born on the 15th of July 1961 in Manchester, England. His mother was a Nigerian student, with his father's identity being unknown. He was put into care at the age of 6 months, where he would spend time in a care home in Wales. When he was older, he moved to Liverpool, where he worked as a cleaner and a messenger for a local authority. One of the more notable things about Aki is his size. He is 6 foot 5 inches tall, weighs 22 stone, and he enjoys the gym, so he is a very imposing, powerful person. Bear in mind that his targets all have to be very fine specimens specimens of men in order for Aki to be interested in them, and he is able to intimidate them with just his sheer presence. His distinctive attributes worked in his favour in one regard, but in another way they were his downfall. Now that people knew who he was, if a large black man asked to feel your muscles, it wouldn't take Sherlock Holmes to work out who it was. And now the police knew which door to knock on. In 2001, he was charged with 50 counts of indecent assault and harassment against 14 boys. He was actually convicted of threatening behaviour and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. In 2003, he was charged with 76 counts of indecent assault, but convicted of 15 counts of harassment and another charge of witness harassment. The witness harassment relates to him putting a gun through a letterbox of one of the families who was pressing charges against him. This family was moved away from the area under the Witness Protection Programme.
And Aki was trying to touch my brother and feel my brother's arms. So I said to him, I'm going to phone the police if you don't leave my brother alone. Get away. It was about half an hour later, bang, bang, bang on the door. So I looked out the window and he was like, come down here. I was like, I'm not coming down. He came round with a gun, put it through my letterbox and said, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. They were the exact words.
Aki was sentenced to 6 years in prison for this one. The judge in this case states, "You are a danger to young men and your behaviour is both strange and obsessive." When he was released from prison, he was given a unique prevention order, which is the only one like it given in Britain and I would guess the world. He was banned from touching muscles, measuring muscles, asking people to do squats, hanging around schools, sports clubs and gyms. In 2008, he was jailed for 18 months for breaching this order when he approached a 17-year-old in a shopping centre. Aki commented on the size of his biceps and squeezed his muscles without permission. If you haven't guessed, Aki does this a lot. He's quite prolific.
What's your best muscle? How big your arms?
In 2009, he was jailed for breaching this order again. In this court case, details about his stalker manual were disclosed. This delightful sounding book is where he would keep details about body measurements, contact details and information on the families of the people that he had taken a liking to. He would do in-depth research on his victims, and when asking to feel their muscles, he would tell them things like their father's car registration number or family members' places of education. In 2010, he was jailed again for breaching this order when he touched the muscles of a 16-year-old in Wales. He got 2.5 years in prison for this one. In 2013, he was arrested again for targeting young men in 3 different towns but was cleared of all charges. Then in 2015, he was convicted for feeling the muscles of a student travelling on a train. It's unclear how long he got for this one. Then some good news for Aki. In 2016, the ban on him feeling muscles was lifted by a judge who stated that it could no longer be justified. There are a few justifications for it staying in place that I can think of. I can't find any more convictions after this point, so it would seem that this judge's decision legalised Aki's actions. And I'm sure we can all guess that Aki would not stop touching muscles.
Oh my fucking god. Mate, he's actually doing it now. He's the wrong one. Mate, he's been to jail for that.
One's in jail and one's been fucking locked up for life.
Your muscles.
Nah, you said to me, do you want to work out?
No, hang on. Did I try to touch your muscles?
Nah, you said do you work out?
There you go.
Just reading out a list of convictions doesn't really convey the obsessive and predatory nature of what Aki gets up to. So let's look at a newspaper article that I found from 1997. 6-foot 5-inch giant stalks Rugby Super League stars is the headline. This article claims that a rugby league put out a warning to their clubs about Aki after he launched what they call a vicious vendetta against some of their players. They claim that he had an ongoing harassment campaign against some of their players which had been going on for over 3 years. This included attacks on their homes, vandalism on their cars and many threats against them. They are quoted to say, "This man is a menace. He has an astonishing ability to get hold of players' addresses and phone numbers and they don't feel safe." The rugby league states that this all happened because some of the players refused to meet up with Aki and I guess they wouldn't let him touch their muscles. Aki then contacted the rugby clubs and complained that these players showed racist behaviour towards him and made bad gestures at him. This incident seems to be the overall MO of Aki, the obsessive stalking, gathering information and playing the race card if things don't go his way. The name Purple Aki is an unusual one, with the Aki part being an abbreviation of his first name and the purple part coming from his skin colour, which is said to be so black that he is purple. Honestly, I don't really understand the logic being used for this, but that's just what it is. There are a few accounts of Aki using his race to get boys to do what he wants by accusing them of racism if they don't let him squeeze their muscles.
I was 15 at the time, and I was walking across the road, and this big black fella banged into me. And he said, I know you, don't I? I said, I don't think so. And he said, I do. What gym do you train at? So I told him, and he said, well, I train there, that's where I know you from. He was like, well, let me just show you these murderers on trial in the law courts. I was like, I don't want to see any murderers on trial. Straight away, he turned on me and said, you're being racist, you don't want to come with me because I'm black. And I was like, shocked. I was like, my dad's from Egypt, I'm not racist. Anyway, we went in the law courts, and this is where it gets a bit weird. So he said, take your top off. But I want to see your muscles. So I was like, I don't want to take my top off. He's like, why? What's wrong with it? You do bodybuilding. I'm into bodybuilding. I just want to see your muscles, that's it. He was stood in front of the door. I had nowhere to go. In the end, took my top off. And he's got me doing all these bodybuilding poses. He's looking at me. He's like, right, I want to see how strong you are. Get me in a fireman's lift and squat me. So I was like, no chance. He's like, why not? He started getting a bit aggressive. Anyway, I just ended up doing it.
So he's on your back?
He's on here like this. It's massive, 6'5" he is. He was sweating loads, and I remember thinking, why are you sweating? After I put him down, he wasn't in front of the door, so I just opened the door and legged it.
In 2016, the BBC made a documentary about Aki in which someone talked to his victims and investigated the story. Aki would then contact the Merseyside police, who would launch an investigation into the documentary as a hate crime. Aki claims that the fact that they used his nickname and mentioned his skin colour in the documentary was racist. I'm not too sure what came of this hate crime investigation, so part of the reason why the involuntary manslaughter case was overturned was because racial overtones were used by the prosecution. For this, Aki was awarded £35,000 in compensation. He has also had a few other run-ins with the police along these lines. In 2013, he raised a complaint against the police for the conduct of one of their officers being overly confrontational. And in 2014, he tried to sue Manchester police after he was arrested for accosting people outside a toilet. The arresting officer referred to Aki by his surname rather than his real name, and is quoted to say, his real name is quite a lengthy Nigerian name. He's very famous. In a strange twist, it was Aki who was then arrested for harassing the arresting officer. Coincidentally, I'm sure, the pair kept on meeting at bodybuilding events, with the policeman claiming that Aki would film him and threaten him, implying that he knew where the policeman lived, what gym he went to, and where the policeman worked. The case against Aki was dismissed when it was found that the policeman acted in an unacceptable and unprofessional manner. When in a public area of the court, the policeman claimed that Aki was a predator and a killer who had been stalking him for months. In 2022, Aki was awarded a substantial and undisclosed sum in settlement of a civil case against Manchester police for the false allegations made against him in the case from 2014. In an earlier court case, Aki claims to be the victim of a modern-day witch hunt, implying that the reason that he has become so infamous was because of his skin colour. One final thing on this topic, a restaurant in Manchester was forced to apologise for naming a burger after Aki. Can you guess what the burger was called? Purple Teriyaki.
Aki, turn round. Come and feel me muscles. Look at me muscles, look at how big me muscles are, Bad one, you son. See you later.
So one thing that I found confusing about this story is that Liverpool is a tough city with tough people living there. So why is it that Aki has never really been run out of this city, or worse? Sure, he is a big guy, but grizzly bears are big and they don't rule the world. We do. Humans are good at overcoming natural power with tools. So I was very curious as to why he seemingly has free reign in this city. This then led me down a rabbit hole of ex-criminals from Liverpool doing podcasts, and they seem to have their own theories on this topic. Bear in mind that these are just people saying stuff on the internet, but if anyone's going to know about this stuff, it's going to be these people. We will look at 3 of these people and what they have to say about Aki, as it may shed some light on the story. Darren Gee was a leading member of a notorious crime family in Liverpool. He got sentenced to 18 years in prison for helping to organise a murder during a gang war in the city. A falling out with a man named William Moore led to an outbreak of shootings in Liverpool, with Moore hiring an ex-SAS soldier to assassinate Gee. This failed, but sadly one of his friends lost his life in this attempted assassination. In an act of revenge, Darren Gee had a man named David Regan assassinated, but sadly again this was the wrong man, with David having nothing to do with organised crime. In the same year, some of Gee's associates would have another gang feud and commit a wave of car bombings in the city, targeting nightclubs, family homes and a police station. So that's a quick recap of who Darren is. Mr. Gee claims that he has known Aki since he was 13 years old, and that Aki worked for organised crime gangs in the city as an enforcer by extorting money and getting people to retract statements to the police. He claims that this is the reason why Aki has been protected in the city and that no action has been taken against him, as it would be met with swift retaliation by the underworld. In one video, he says something that seems to tie up with something that a lot of other people have said. Aki would regularly sit in the public area of courts with a pen and a paper taking notes. Darren claims that this was a way for the criminals in the city to intimidate witnesses and warn people not to go to court. He also tells another story that is echoed by others. When Aki was in prison, he would trick new arrivals into getting stuck into the hole in the back of a chair, then do things to them while they were stuck. He did this one time in Manchester prison to the wrong person and was beaten up in his cell by the other inmates. Then the next day, people from the Liverpool underworld went to the home of the sister of the young man that was stuck in the back of the chair, kicked off her door and slashed her face as a warning not to mess with Aki.
So now what we've got here is a 60-year-old man plus who's a prolific offender all over the country, not just Liverpool, all over the country. He's intimidating people left, right and centre for criminals, whether that's to extort money, whether that's to retract statements in criminal proceedings, or whether that's just to damage some of the family for a dealing family. That's his priorities and that's what he does, and that's why he's not dead. Do you think any other offender would be able to walk the streets of Liverpool the way he is, the way he has done? And there's only one reason for that, and that's his connections. I knew his connections, the people he grew up with.
Stephen French, otherwise known as the Devil, is fairly well known, having featured in many documentaries about the underworld in Liverpool. He would tax the rich and powerful crime lords in the city by doing not very nice things to them. Stephen then had a change of heart and became an anti-gun campaigner, doing many interviews about the need for peace on the streets. He was then jailed for 3 years for pistol whipping one of his rivals. Nice. Stephen claims to be friends with Aki and that he once asked him if he was gay. Aki said that no, he was not gay, he just likes the male aesthetic. From what we have looked at, it would seem that he really likes the male aesthetic. Stephen says that Aki once helped him beat a criminal case, so he is grateful for this, and that Aki once felt his nephew's muscles. Make of this what you will.
Akin Arabiki said, no, he isn't gay, and I believe him, yeah, and he likes the male aesthetics. He likes bodybuilding shows and the male aesthetics. Yeah. There's a lot of chat and talk about him. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And there's no two ways about it. He has felt muscles up. Yeah, right. But also, yeah, right. He was vilified as a bogeyman. Yeah, right. This isn't me condoning any of the allegations against him.
Billy Moore is a different person to the William Moore that Darren Gee had a disagreement with. So Billy was a petty criminal who moved to Thailand in the hopes that he could leave his life of crime behind him. While in Thailand, he worked as a stuntman for Sylvester Stallone on the movie Rambo, then got involved in underground fighting, which led him to become involved in the underworld in Thailand. He would get sentenced to 3 years in prison for drug offences, serving a lot of his time in what is known as the Bangkok Hilton. After he was released, he would write a book about this, and this was turned into a movie called A Prayer Before Dawn. I haven't watched this movie, but just reading over the details, it sounds like he had a very harrowing time in Thailand. Billy claims to have known Aki since he was 16 and that Aki wanted to feel his muscles, but he ran away, to which Aki followed him home. He also claims that he would see Aki sitting in the courts with his pen and paper taking notes. There are a lot of these people that tell their own stories about Aki, but a few things do keep cropping up across them all. Most of them say that Aki is an unusually intelligent person and knows a lot about the law. There are many stories of him helping people out with their court cases, and in a lot of the court cases that he has had, he has represented himself in court. Him sitting in the court taking notes seems to pop up a lot as well. And the other thing that most of them say is that Aki is a very large, powerful and intimidating man.
He strives off fear. That's what he does, mate. Don't get me wrong, he's a big ass fella. And he probably does like to touch muscles and that, but what you hear a lot of the time is bullshit. But people in jail, you know, a lot of lads are scared of him. But if you know him and you just he goes, listen, Aki, calm down. He's just relaxed then. And he helps a lot of lads in jail, you know, with like the case and that, because he's smart as hell, mate. Do you know what I mean? He's a clever.
If you are wondering what it's like when Aki is in prison, then there are stories of him measuring inmates' arms with a shoelace, and him being the shower orderly with people really not wanting to drop the soap. The only real time that I could find of Aki being confronted was when a group of young locals chased him out of the area by shooting fireworks at him, a few of which hit him in the face.
Purple Aki, yeah?
Don't be shy, lad. Tell him to get out the area,
What are you doing around here, bro?
Get out the area, lad.
Get out the area, bro. Serious.
Go on, bro. Get out the area, lad.
Get out the area, man. Hey, boys. Here's Purple Aki.
Be careful, lads.
Be careful.
Get out the area, lad.
Get out the area, lad. Yeah, what?
So why does Aki do this? Honestly, I have no idea, and you seem to get different theories depending on who you listen to. Some say that Aki gets excited in the way that only a man can be excited, when he is being squatted as his man parts rub against the neck of the young man who is doing the squatting. Aki himself once admitted in court that he has an unusual interest in muscles, the development of muscles, and the potential of young men to improve their physique. Maybe something happened to him growing up in a care home, or maybe it's a dominance thing, or maybe he just really likes muscles. Only one man can answer this really, and I've been unable to find any interviews with Aki. In the interest of fairness, I haven't come across anything about him actually doing the dirty deed with these young men. He just really likes their muscles. He does seem to be a very motivated man. It's just a shame the things that motivate him, I guess. It would appear that Aki has been given a lot of natural gifts and he has chosen to focus them on feeling muscles. What an odd story this is. Purple Aki is seen as a bit of a meme or a joke by most people, so going into this video I thought it'd be a light-hearted thing about someone that just likes muscles. But it actually turned out to be a lot darker than I expected. Aki is still alive from what I can tell, but he is now in his 60s. My guess would be that he is still feeling muscles, so if you see a large black man being squatted by a teenager, then I guess you know what's going on. I'm just lucky that I'm not young, muscly, or live in Liverpool, I guess.
For a lot of people it's a joke. He is a boogeyman. He's like, my boyfriend says people walk through town and if they see him they'll take selfies and
crazy.
But not a lot of people are aware of what happened to my dad. It's a sickening dip in my stomach because that actually happens to people and do you know?
Do you think people know who he really is?
No. Not at all.
Who is he really?
Don't know. Even from someone whose life is affected. Don't know who he is.
Watch this video about Mark Feely. He is another northerner who is kind of the opposite to Aki in a lot of ways, but the same in other ways. Thanks to the channel members and the Patreons. Do the like, subscribe thing, and bye-bye.
Hey, bro. Have you been on the BBC? Whoa.